Thank you for tuning in to Ungentrified with Kent Johnson. Ungentrified takes an unfiltered view on pop culture, music, television and film, politics, current events, and topics central to the worldwide Black community. Ungentrified is a safe audio space for celebrating Black culture in its purest form. What's up, good people? It's your boy Kent, back with another very special episode of Ungentrified. And of course, I have one of my favorite people in the world, B, with me.
Hey.
And we are here to discuss the most recent episode of season 4 of Insecure, which was episode 5? 4?
4. I think it was 4.
Lowkey. Right, 4. Lowkey Losin It.
Lowkey Losin It.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm losing it.
All right, so there was a couple of things that went on and a couple of things that we lost in reference to losing it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So timeline-wise, we are a month away from the block party. And then we have an exact date for the block party. It is January 25th. So that kind of threw me because I was like, if they gave us the time marker of a month, that means it's Christmas time. And I ain't seen not a single, not near Christmas decoration at any point in this episode.
Oh my God, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I was doing the math and then I was like, wait, isn't it the holidays then?
Right. Yeah, like nothing. So I think we're loose in that month. You know, when certain things be like, oh, it's going to take a month, and that includes like a month and 29 days. Like it falls into that before it officially becomes 2 months. I think it's one of those. Yeah.
Or people don't get real hype about Christmas till it's like 2 weeks till.
Right. So we're in December, somewhere in December, but yeah, it ain't no Christmas.
Well, yeah, because according to her text messages, it was like the first or second week of December.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. I didn't even pick up on that.
I did, because she had been texting Condo for about a week. Right. And that was like December 6th was on the text messages.
Okay. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up Condo. We can't call her Condo no more.
Why? What is she? Trailer park? No, I'm just...
I don't know if you saw Issa Rae's post about the origin of the name Condola. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay. So last week, Issa Rae posted on Instagram about it. She was like, people have been bugging them about the name Condola, and they thought that it was a made-up name. So in the writer's room, you know, when they decided that last season rather, that Lawrence was going to be dating with intention, they put in the mindset of like, okay, who do Black men deem as like the perfect wife, like the archetype, the prototype, the type, all of those types of like, what is the ideal Black woman? And a lot of the writers agreed that Felicia Rashad or Claire Huxtable would be like the ideal Black woman, right? Or one of. So They would be like, well, what would be the younger version of Felicia Rashad? And that would be Condola Rashad, which is Felicia Rashad's daughter. And that's where the name came from. So Condola is a real name. It's a real person.
So we've been disrespecting Felicia Rashad. Now I feel bad.
Right.
Actually, it was you. You was doing it, and I just fell in line.
Right. And that was me falling in line with everybody else.
With some followers.
Right. I saw Corolla this week. We talked about conditional, cornucopia. Calliope.
Oh, right. That's too much. Those are kind of too far.
Condensation, like it was all over the place. But I will not call her Condo, or I will attempt to not call her Condo anymore and refer to her as Condola.
Okay.
But yeah,
me too.
You brought up a good point. So one of the people who we lost this episode is Condola because she wasn't there at all, other than the fact that she was not responding to
She
Issa's
was
text message.
ghosting. Yeah,
Right.
ghosting Issa.
Yeah, so I mean, it's crunch time. We're a month away from the block party, so a lot of things are falling in place. Like we need flyers done. We got questions that need to be answered, and Issa's been reaching out to Condola and getting dust, like no response at all.
Yeah, she looked kind of stalkerish in those
Right.
text messages. She even had like the little I guess it was like her looking like peering through a window, peering through
Right,
some
the eye
some
emojis.
blinds. Yeah.
Yeah, like, B, where you at? Yeah, it was one of those. So we haven't heard anything from Condola, and it's clearly getting to Issa because of, like I said, the timeline being so close to the actual date. But
Yeah.
look, that's gonna be the next looking for Latoya. Can we find Condola? Cause she gone.
Yeah. I
And
know who she's not reaching out to.
right, and we also know she ain't reaching out to Lawrence either.
Yeah.
Because
They on a break.
yeah, they clearly on a break. When the name Condola was brought up, he kind of stuttered a little bit and couldn't get out that he hadn't been talking to her, but we were able to deduce that from his conversation with Issa at Tiffany's house. But
Hmm.
the bigger part of this episode is that the baby is here. Tiffany had her baby Simone,
Hmm.
and I mean, a couple of things came up while they were at the house. I feel like I'm jumping out of the place, so let's step back a little bit because I feel like this episode was really Molly centric too.
It was. It had a lot to do with her relationships with everybody,
Right.
honestly. Like her relationship with Tiffany, even her relationship with obviously Issa and Andrew. So
Hmm.
and her relationships at work. So yeah, it was pretty much all about Molly.
Yeah, yeah. So we open up the episode and we see Molly and Andrew are going strong again. I guess they're back on. And he comes over to the house to chill and catch up. But Molly's been hampered down by this case that she's working on, and she tells him like, "Look, just give me until 9 o'clock. I'll be done, and then we can do and whatever we want to do." And she doesn't finish until almost 2 o'clock in the morning, almost 5 hours later. So
Now, you have stayed? Would you have even checked in to be like, it's 10:30 and you said you'll be done at 9? He just went to bed.
yeah,
And he
but
didn't just like pass out. He had his clothes off and everything.
we know I've been in that space where it's like, let me just be prepared. If things look, it might be, I may be falling asleep right now, but if it's 15 minutes later, I'm ready, bro. I just want you
I'm
to
ready
know
to go.
I'm
And
ready.
clearly he was ready when
Right.
she did come.
um, but yeah, I would have probably checked in and been like, you good? Like, you need anything?
Are you
Uh,
hungry?
should
You
I
want
go
some
to
water?
sleep? Right. Should we schedule this for the morning? Something like that. But
Hmm.
yeah, she kind of let work take over their quality time that they were supposed to be having. And that starts off a trend for them throughout the episode. So, she kind of skirts their date, and then she was later on in the episode supposed to go to a listening party with Andrew, but she ends up opting to stay late at work to work on this case. So
Hmm.
she ditches him again.
And was like,
Then
my man understand.
right. Oh, he good. He know what's going on. He know I'm a strong woman and I got to take care of what's going on.
Yeah, as
Um,
soon as I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, problems,
right.
problems." Foreshadowing.
And we later on in the episode, they actually are out on a date, and she's on that. Oh, I made time for us, and we gonna do this and after this tonight. All of this tonight. He was like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
but we not, cause I got
I got
plans
plans.
after after dinner." And Molly, in true Molly fashion, got upset. Molly got mollied, and and caught feelings that Andrew had made other plans just based off of now her history of not uh
Making time.
yeah, not making time for
Not
him.
prioritizing. And she even said in that conversation, she was like, "But I have time, or I
Right.
made time." So the fact that you made time just lets you, it should let you know that you had to make that time, as opposed to it just flowing freely and him knowing what to expect from you. Like you had to come out of what you had already rolling to make time for this date that you had already planned. So she should have known right then that she was wrong.
Right. And then at this point in their relationship, I think it's pretty clear that Andrew is very kind of like roll with the flow. And I'm not going to say anything in immediate, but I'm going to change my actions based off of what you've done. Like,
Yeah.
that's been his response to a lot of stuff. So why she hasn't picked up on like that's his modus operandi for stuff, I don't know. But she really acted surprised, and I was like, you know what? I was waiting for Molly to show up and show out,
For her
and
regular self.
right. And sure enough, she did. Oh, and then I'm sorry, I missed. So she ditched him 3 times. So she ditched him
Oh,
when
well,
he
she
was
was
at the
at Tiffany's
house.
house.
Right. Yeah, because they were supposed to
Hmm.
go to the movies too. So it was
Hmm.
movies, listening party, and then when he came over to her house and she stayed up working later than she should have. So that was 3 strikes you out. I'm gonna make sure I got something to do. Ain't no open ended stuff to our activities no more because when they do, that means I end up not doing anything, and that's how Andrew
Anything,
rolled.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I try to be sympathetic to her also because she is a working woman. You know, she's very career driven. And as she stated herself, she would have been messed up by now to the point where they wouldn't even still been together.
Right.
So I tried to like look at it through those eyes because, well, obviously, well, not obvious, but I've been with my husband for a long time. So in the beginning, I was kind of just free flowing. Like I didn't ever have to prioritize one or the other. It was just free flowing in my 20s.
Hmm.
But once you hit that 30s, and work comes on strong, you really do have to organize and prioritize and be like, ooh, I really, I got to stay late at work, or this project is really big. And then, you have to have that open line of communication to make sure that you aren't letting balls drop or neglecting relationships, friendships too, not just, boyfriends, husbands, or whatever. You have to make sure that you're not neglecting your friendships by prioritizing your work too. Not that she did in this instance, but yeah, I was trying to feel for her in the moment that she's realizing that now and having to like accommodate all these other things going on.
Right. Yeah, and that was something that also scared me too. Molly admitted that she had never been in a relationship longer than the one that she and Andrew were in. Hey,
And they've been together for like 2 seconds.
right. And I didn't even know that they had called it like official, like we exclusive. This a deal. So, and mind you, this is what like 3 months or
I
something
think
like
it's been
that.
like 3 or 4 months for
Yeah.
them. They've
I'm
been
like,
together for a while.
right. Get
Well,
it.
because they've been together since Coachella, right?
What do we call that together? Because like, and look, if we wanted to be nice to her, we'll call that together, right? All right, Coachella's in April, so it's
Uh-huh. And it's
December.
December. That's a long time. I mean,
The
granted they had some off and on time. So I think they probably have been together since the beginning of this season, which we now know is what, like September.
right, it's been 3 months. Either way, she 30 years old. That's a very short time to have any. So that lets me know that Molly been crazy for a long time. This isn't a crazy that accumulated through bad relationships and things that and the third. This a crazy that was implanted and grew and had space to flourish and be toxic for a long time.
Well, I
So
don't okay, listen. You making her crazy like Fatal Attraction crazy, but she learned about her dad. Then
mhm.
she was messing with Dro when he was married. Obviously, she doesn't have like the best background in relationships, and to be fair, it's not necessarily that she's like crazy as far as relationships. She also always prioritized work and Issa. Like
Hmm.
up until this point, Issa has been her main priority and her fallback to anything. Like, oh, this your sex. But Issa is my road dog. She's my almost everything. She's my family, pretty much. So I think she's just now not having just a healthy relationship. She's opening herself up to something other than that relationship. And now she's also going to have to make accommodations for work. Obviously, she's not going to let that ball drop because she's just super career driven, but she's going to have to learn how to communicate those timelines. So I don't think she's like crazy, crazy, like just toxic and terrible. I just think that there are some women who are really just career driven and then they look up and they're 40, single, they got everything under the sun. They got the job, the car, the house, everything, but they didn't prioritize relationships. And then so there's just, to me, in my view, there's just there's different types of women in that way.
And it doesn't even limit itself to women. There are people like that who, and we talked about this in earlier episode, that when they have all of the other things checked, like a good job, nice car, money in the bank, they assume that these are the things that are would make them like a prize jewel for everybody else in the world. You should want to be with me and put up with what
Right.
I got going on. It was a Twitter storm last week about a guy who graduated from law school who was like, black women, y'all need to be on it. I got a law degree. I got this, that, and the third. I'm the prize. And people went in on him. So it's not just limited to women. There's just people like
That's
that
true.
in general who feel like, you know what, I ain't got to work on that because people need to adjust to all this greatness that I got going on in the other spaces, and it don't work like that.
That's true.
Um,
You're right.
but crazy or crazy not, whatever she may be, she sure enough pushed herself out there as a relationship expert when they were at Tiffany's house,
Tiffany's.
right?
Yeah.
Because everything became, well, now that I'm in a relationship, and in a relationship, and I was like, oh, look at this one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I
she
was like,
went
you are digging yourself into a hole
right,
and you
mom,
don't even know.
right. And I was just like, if she ever got married, she would be worse than Tiffany is with this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
But it just reminded me of like, all of the folks we see on social media who out of nowhere become an expert in a space. And it's like you ain't done the work to be an expert. They telling you
Right.
how to create a business, and the business that they created was selling you a business a
A
book
business
on how to
plan. Yeah.
create a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was cracking me up with this whole relationship expert stuff that she was going on. But
Especially because she was wrong. She was like, because my man definitely understands me. And when you bond like this, when you have a friendship like this, and meanwhile Andrew is like, so I'm supposed to go hang out with my Ali, but I'm gonna just go ahead and make these other plans because she's not gonna come.
right.
So meanwhile she's thinking that she's an expert and other stuff is happening.
Yeah, and it's like you ain't even out the 90-day grace period of your relationship. Because I say if we being nice, we can go back to April. But truth of the matter is, it's been 3 months, and even at 3 months, is sketchy when we get down to the p's and q's of this relationship. But hey, you
Hmm.
ain't out of that period. Things could go awry. So you in there talking about my man and what we do and in a relationship. I was like, yeah, all right, chill, calm
I think
down
she's
on
just
that.
giving herself that extra pat on the back from all the communicating that she's been doing because she has been doing a good job. To your point, for the last 3, 4 weeks, you've been saying how great she's been doing communicating, and she stepped up again this time too. She was like, hold up. Obviously, if he's making backup plans, I need to do better and make this up to him, number one, and then, try to prioritize and make some adjustments in my life. So she definitely she pulled herself out of it again. So she's growing. Leave my girl alone.
Right. And I think that a lot of that upstanding was from the fact that her and Issa are still taking like little jabs at each other, even though I don't even know if they
Not even
realize
little.
it.
That
Yeah.
parking spot thing was huge.
Yeah. That was Issa's parking spot. Like that's
That
just
was.
but it kind of put in the idea like that parking situation spoke to their entire relationship as friends, right? Like I'm working on something. This is you see me on the way to completing something on my own and then you block it. Like you always in the way and then
Hmm.
since I'm a pushover, I'm gonna let you have that just so we can move
That's
along.
true.
But this whole episode had me I had to sit and like do an accounting of the entire series and be like, okay, so who was the worst friend here?
I did too.
How did we get to this point? And it brought me back to the first season with Broken Pussy and how like Issa really dogged Molly out for a connection to Daniel at the time. And
Hmm.
I remember they had a big fight in the car. I had to go back and watch that clip when Molly like fussed her out and told Issa how selfish she was and things like that. So I was like, I took a step back on Molly being a punching bag and calling her crazy and was like, you know what?
She's
I'm glad that
tired.
right. We seeing both sides of them being like at fault for this relationship, and it really boils down to communication. Like they just not
Hmm.
getting to the point where they need to talk about it, and and in doing so, they're missing a lot of the pieces to the thoughts that they have about one another. They're making a lot of assumptions off of the things that haven't been said.
And they're just both being, at this point, they're both being stubborn in it. Like, I'm not going to be the one to say something, like to have that conversation. First of all, Issa got a lot of stuff. They both have a lot of stuff going on, right?
Hmm.
But it's just not even in her mindset right now to say sorry or let's really sit down and talk or anything. She's really self motivated right now to get her one thing accomplished. Whereas Molly is just she's just entrenched in her everyday life and she always makes time for Issa, but right now she's wanting to be able to like, offload some stuff on her. And when she sees that Issa's just kind of like not giving her that window, that's when she really like pushes back and is like, well, anyway, I gotta go, or what did you do wrong when Issa had called her about her artist falling out. She was
Hmm.
like, well, what did you do? It must have been you. Because
Right.
you can't do nothing right. As opposed to like her being an attorney and giving her the legal advice to fix it in that way. She kind of like left her out to dry there, and then obviously she left her out to dry again later on. But Molly's just like, it should all be all about me right now. I have a lot to say. She did it with Andrew too when he came to the house. He came in and she was like, "Ooh, this job is just so much." And this, but then she realized that ain't nobody want to hear that. Like
Hmm.
she was breaking the mood, and so then she shut it down. But when Issa didn't want to hear it, she shut the relationship down. She shut the whole thing down and was like, "Well, I don't have time." So I think she definitely wants to offload some stuff. They both wrong, but Molly's just done.
Right, and they like you said, they both want to offload onto each other, and really is we've seen the tables turn for them, whereas Molly's now trying to navigate the romantic side of her life and the relationships in that space, where Issa's trying to navigate, actually bringing something to fruition at work and who she's going to be as someone, contributing to the world. So like they're both trying to figure out spaces that the other one knows or has a
Mhm.
little bit more experience in. So
Mhm.
they're looking to each other for that lean on space because I know that you know that other space well. And so I can't have your problems right now because I want you to hear my problems, and that those two things are clashing with one another. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's
And they just don't have time. They're not interested in helping each other right now.
right. And all right, so, and I'm of the opinion that Molly's line of questioning wasn't that bad about what happened, and with the contract, because we didn't even mention it. So Issa found out that she lost her headliner. She lost Schoolboy Q as her headliner for the block party. She found this out when she was at Kelly's house. So she calls Molly to ask her like what what kind of help could she provide. Well, she was calling with the intent to ask her if
If
uh,
Andrew could hook up.
right, because we know Andrew works for Live Nation. She was like, "Could you make that? Could you make that happen? I'm asking you for a favor." But before she could get to that part, Molly was like, "You know what? You have a contract, right? Like, what's going on with the contract?" That's a very lawyerly thing to do.
Yeah.
So when she did it, I was like, you know what? I probably would have asked those questions too, so that I know what kind of advice to give you. So I don't feel like Molly was completely wrong with that, but she came into it with an attitude because she was ready to talk about, what's going on in her life, and it's like, oh, here, Issa wants something. Like she didn't even do the fake niceties that people do when they want something from you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, why didn't she just kind of like let her like listen for like 5 minutes and then say, "And you know what, girl? Now that we talking about Andrew,
Right,
can he hook us with stuff?" Like she should. She was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't talk about that right now." So I agree. When I heard her asking those questions, I didn't think they were bad questions. But like you've been saying this whole time, which is the timing, right? So Issa just was like, if this was after she was already giving her shade at Tiffany's house, so she was already like, "Oh, you don't believe in me. I must have done something wrong," when it really wasn't me. And she's just stressed. Like you think about like something that you have. This is a huge thing. This is not like some personal deadline. Like if you don't have this, a musician for this thing, your whole event that's scaled for a city might, like fall apart. So, I think she's just stressed and don't have time for niceties. And then on top of that, to be second guessed by your best friend instead of solution driven, then I think that that's why she just had that negative response too.
right. And, when people, because when you become a lawyer, all your friends have deemed you as their personal lawyer. So when people come to you with those kinds of questions, or when they come to me rather with those kinds of questions, I kind of lead it off with, these are the things that a lawyer on the other side is going to be thinking. So don't take any insult by the questions that I'm going to ask, about your situation. These are the things I want you to get in the mindset of what somebody else is thinking about your case too, or whatever situation
Hmm.
you got going on. And I want to give you the best answer. But people do get offended by the kinds of questions that you ask because you're trying to get to the root of the problem. You're kind of like, all right, what's the issue, and what can we do to fix it? So yeah, Molly wasn't completely wrong. It was like I said, timing, and then she had other things on her mind, and she wanted to, she wanted that call to be a call that let her release something, and ended up becoming something added to her plate.
Hmm.
So, like you said,
But she
Issa,
left that call with hopes that she was like, yeah, all right, I'll go ask her, whatever. Like,
right.
I thought she wouldn't, I thought it would just be like, yo, on your own. But she at least said, let me see what I can do.
Right. So
Yeah.
she agrees to ask Andrew if he can make any kind of connection for Issa for this block party, right? Um
Hmm. Because meanwhile, Condola, whatever her name is.
Still ain't said nothing.
Yeah, she's the really like the one that I think in this instance Issa would have leaned on with all her connections. But since she's not returning phone calls, she really is in a bind. And so when this whole thing happened, I felt for her, but at the same time, I just saw this as an opportunity. Like this is her time to really dig in and prove Molly wrong, prove it, not that anybody else doubts her, but like to prove everybody wrong and just knock it out the park.
Right. Right. Yeah, and she didn't want to ask Molly. We saw her go through like all of what she felt like were her available options, or at least uh, I I felt like she had some other options, and just in reading like Twitter that night, a lot of people felt like that. So When she gets the news that Schoolboy Q can't headline the concert, she's scrambling and calling old friends and uh, thinking about sending Beyonce DMs about
Yeah.
headlining.
I'm glad
Um,
she reconsidered.
right, right. Uh, but part of that, as she's doing this, I'm like, is she gonna call Daniel?
Oh
Because
my God, I was thinking that too. I was like, she could at least call, but I don't know. Like, where is Daniel? They don't even talk about him like he never existed. So I don't know. Maybe in this universe he doesn't exist in this time frame. They're like he's dead to me. I don't know. But I was thinking that exact same thing. I was like, why wouldn't she at least just hit him up and be like, hey, how are you doing? Like, like blow some smoke over there or something.
Right. Yeah, I definitely thought that that was gonna happen. And then this was just an episode where like things from the past came up because she got a call from Nathan randomly
Ugh.
about the party. So
Hmm.
when I had the thought about Daniel, I was like, well, damn, is she gonna call Nathan back? Because Nathan's also a connection to Andrew. Of
Hmm.
course,
Yeah.
I would feel like she wouldn't want to use that link because she has Molly, but she had that option there as well. But I think Molly's coming into the favor that Issa asked with two kind of hesitations. One, I know Issa, and I know that her history of fumbling the bag and making things not happen. So I don't know if I want to use that lifeline on this great quote unquote relationship that I have right now with Andrew. So she's at a crossroads. Like, do I feel comfortable enough to ask that of him? And is is it
And I
worth
don't
it?
want to.
Right. Like, is it worth it? Because of all the things that have been going on in the space that we're in right now. And it begs that question of like, at what point do you feel like you don't ride for your friend no more? Like, can you be mad at somebody but still help them out? And for Molly, it seemed like that answer was no, because she decided not to ask Andrew for assistance and told Issa that she wasn't going to do it. So I was like, "Oh, damn! Is this the line in the sand? Is this the thing that
I'm
gets
sure it is.
them to this moment?"
Yeah,
Because
I think it is. But you know what I keep thinking is like, as bad as Molly keeps trying to make her feel, like, has she really done that bad in her life as far as work? Like, I know she's like a super screw up when it comes to like relationships, and she has had some stumbles, but is it enough for her to be like, I'm not gonna mess with you when it comes to Andrew? Like, nah, I don't think so, personally. I just didn't. I thought it really just came from a place of, I don't want to help you. Like, you don't deserve my help right now. I want to see if you're gonna do it, you need to do it on your own, because
right,
like, I just don't have time. And to me, it came from like a petty place, not necessarily like a, I hope you grow on your own kind of place, or this relationship means too much to me. I mean, I do see your point, but I just don't think that she's screwed up in her career so bad that like it would be something where Molly couldn't trust her to, especially this, like, being that it's this far along. I mean, obviously she doesn't have the insight that we have, because they've been missing every Sunday. Their
self care
mindfulness
Sundays.
self
Yeah,
care Sundays, mindfulness Sundays, like working on, their relationship and their body Sundays. But I mean, she knows that this is really important. Like, she's, yeah, especially working with Condola. Like, it's not just like a small thing. She's really put herself out there. And at worst comes the worst, the guy gets, out of the contract or whatever, and doesn't have to do it or whatever. I think that this totally was like a petty thing, and all she had to do was ask Andrew. Andrew could have said no on his own. He could
right,
have been like, I don't really know her like that, or you know and the way that she's been talking down about Issa, like, even from the moment that they had the little meet and greet, and in the what do you call it, like the courtyard, like
hmm
she was talking down about Issa then, and Issa came through there but she talked down so much about it. Like at this point, Andrew might on his own be like, I'm really not trying to mess with this amateur hour type
Right.
of thing. And then she still would have saved face with her friend, but no, this came from a place of petty.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, she could feel like she didn't have that chip to play because of what happened with her and Andrew, with this, her kind of brushing him off situation.
Hmm.
But and it was kind of like, oh, I got to get back in a good graces with him before I can start asking for
For
girlfriend
favors.
favors, right? But I think, like you said, more so it was lined by the fact that I don't know if you could pull this off, and I don't. I'm not gonna put I'm not gonna put myself out there if I think that you can't make it happen, and that
Hmm.
I was just like, yeah, because I knew just in at the beginning of the season, I was like, well, the fallout isn't going to be at the last episode. It's going to happen halfway because we
Before.
have to see, if they have any kind of resolution. So,
Hmm.
and I think we spoke to that scene in like the trailer where Issa and Molly are meeting up at a restaurant, and it looks like they hadn't seen each other for a while. So,
Hmm.
it was
I mean,
definitely
shoot, they hadn't seen each other for a while here either. They're like, "Oh, hey, have you been working out? Because I haven't." Like,
right
and they said it had been a few weekends, so maybe they hadn't seen each other since shopping at
before.
Bristol Farms.
Yeah, yeah, since before Thanksgiving, right? Yeah, because if it
Hmm.
had been a few weeks, and like you said, timeline wise, it was the middle of December. That would be about 3 weeks from Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's rough, and yeah, I definitely feel like we've hit the moment, but it we see in the previews for next week that Molly does go to the block party. So even though she didn't believe in it enough to offer up favors, she still goes
But
begrudgingly.
barely, yeah.
Right.
She was as negative as she was at the courtyard meet and greet. She's like, "Ugh, do I even have to get dressed for this?"
Right.
Like she is not interested in going, but I mean, but honestly, she has to go. I mean, unless they like hate each other, she has to go because all the other friends are gonna be there. Even Tiffany and them were there. They got a brand new baby. Aren't they there? I feel like I saw them in the
Yeah,
previews.
Tiffany's
And
there.
because she tried to live that brand new. Something was off with Tiffany this episode. I mean, I know that she had the clot issue,
Hmm.
but something was like off. Like if you saw the dynamics between like when Lawrence was up there with the baby, and they were like having that bro moment
Hmm.
with him having a new baby. Not Lawrence, but what's his name?
Derek.
Derek versus downstairs with Tiffany and Kelly and Molly. They're all like taking care of the motherly housely duties, and she's sitting there sipping wine like he could take care of the baby. I don't have a care in the world. So I don't know if maybe she has like postpartum or
Yeah,
something.
I'm definitely that's what I picked up from it. Like it was definitely them displaying a case of postpartum depression
Because
from
I
it.
was, I mean, I not only maybe picked it up more because I just had a baby. So I was like, ooh, she is pumping and drinking, which is, I don't judge that kind of stuff, but I would definitely not leave my liquid gold just sitting on the couch right there for Kelly to be drinking on when it's for my baby. So clearly she has some other priorities, but yeah, so if Molly didn't go, she would look like the worst friend. And I
Right,
think at this point, they're both trying to maintain their relationships and like, I didn't do anything really wrong and we're still cool, even though they're not cool.
right.
And if she didn't go, then she would be super sour and like everybody would look at her like, "Damn, you see when they brought it up." When Issa brought it up to Kelly, but like, oh, has Molly said anything? He was like, "Ooh, you slept with Andrew, didn't you?" Like, she was locked and loaded on that one.
Right. And then honestly that moment at Tiffany's house was it was a pivotal moment because Tiffany kind of called Molly to task about how she had been acting in that whole situation, and the conversations that are had between Kelly and Issa and Molly and Tiffany are important because Kelly and Tiffany were at this space not that long ago where they were
Mhm.
questioning, the value of their friendship. So, they're coming at it from being on the other side of it, whatever the other side is now. It's not the same.
Right.
And they were both kind of admitting to that. Like, it's not the same, but it's something. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was definitely a good point. So I think that was the first time Tiffany actually came with some like solid advice or a solid outlook on something that didn't impact her directly. Uh,
Mhm.
so it was definitely a good
Well,
moment
babies
for
do
that.
help you think of others, right?
Right,
Even though you kind of drunk off
right.
of some rosé.
You drunk, your fluid's low because you just pumped. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
equilibrium off. Yeah,
Yeah,
those
you
are moments of
disheveled, you
clarity.
haven't
Right.
bathed in years, like you almost had a blood clot death, like so, it does help you think of others. So I'm glad that she came through in the clutch.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, they touched on postpartum depression, and they also touched on how Black women aren't aren't getting the appropriate level of care that they should when it comes to hospital visits and interactions with doctors, and that they're not being believed in that situation. So it was a good moment to kind of touch on that too.
Yeah, it was a light touch, but I did peep that too um because they just it kind of like glazed over. They were like, "Oh dang, you got a blood clot." And she was like, "Yeah, you know how they don't be believing us," which is true that Black women have a higher rate of like mortality rate for childbirth than any other nationality. So I thought that was interesting, and I like something similar happened to me not while I was giving birth, but even when I had meningitis in way back in college years, when I went and called the hospital, they didn't believe that I had meningitis. They thought that I just had the flu, which I had not ever. I mean, I probably had the flu before, but it had been so long that I didn't even know the symptoms. So I kind of was like, oh, maybe I am okay. And the only reason why they tested me for meningitis was because the school had recommended it.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the whole time until those tests came back, like every step of the way, they were like, "You don't have it. You don't have it. It's fine." And meanwhile, once they found out that that's what it was like some rare form. And if I hadn't gone when I did, I wouldn't have made it. They said it, so it was like a long line to get someone to believe that I even had it. And then if they hadn't, pursued it, then I wouldn't be here today, which is a small thing. It was a really, really long time ago, but it just shows that it's true. Like you shouldn't have to like I'm not the expert. You're the expert. So I shouldn't have to like convince you that I am sick. And I wonder, especially with the high mortality rates with coronavirus right now in our, demographic, I wonder how many people, especially early on, was like, "Oh, I'm really sick. I think I have the flu or something worse," and they didn't believe them or didn't like treat them well.
Right, especially now that we know that the numbers are so high for
Hmm.
the Black community when it comes to coronavirus. It just, like you said, it makes you think about how many people got turned away, and we've seen stories of people getting turned away. There was an article about a woman who worked at the medical facility and
Hmm.
told them twice that something was wrong with her,
Something was wrong.
and they didn't give her the proper treatment, and she ended up dead. So there's someone who had a direct connection to
The
uh
hospital.
right, the hospital, and still couldn't get the appropriate level of care. So it's definitely something that is scary. And it's something that unfortunately we as a community deal with, and then specifically Black women deal with at a alarming rate. But yeah, I was glad that they touched on it, and brought it to light a little bit more. But
Yeah.
let's see. At
Not that we
the
didn't go on a tangent on that, but but
right,
it was
right.
interesting. I just was like, Tiffany and Derek and the baby were like such a big moment in this episode that I did peep a lot of those signs, and I was like, oh, I wonder if she has postpartum, and then we see her like living her best life
Mm.
in the next episode. So I was
Well,
like,
it
I
was a
can't
month
wait for
later. She might have come out of the funk,
that. Sure,
and adjusted. Who knows? But
she
uh,
might have.
another thing that people had an issue with last night's episode was Derek's response to having a baby girl. a lot of people
Really?
felt like, yeah, I like that was a cringeworthy scene, just him talking about like what's gonna
Somebody's gonna
happen.
figure
Right.
getting his daughter. That is a real thing. Like I'm telling you, well, I think I told you this before. Like I really wanted a girl after having such a crazy son. I was like hysterical over having a daughter, and Tyrese really wanted to like die a little bit because all he thought about was I deserve this because I treated so many girls wrong before her, and he was like really upset about it. So that is a real thing that
Oh yeah, it's
dads
absolutely a real thing.
dads realize like, oh damn, I messed with daughter. I like really like did damage to daughters
Right.
before,
Women are
and now
daughters
someone's gonna
too.
yeah, somebody's gonna do that to my daughter. I don't know if he had to say finger fucker, but I mean it's a real thing.
Yes.
She's not gonna be a virgin forever.
Right. And it's definitely a real conversation that I think people kind of come to terms with the things that they've done in the past, but it's kind of like you didn't have to be like that before.
Right?
But I mean, we've learned, and this is the thing that I got reminded of too, is that people automatically assume that when you get married, like all of the trash that you are disappears, and that is not the case. The things that we've learned about Derek so far, and really Derek and
And Tiffany.
Tiffany,
Uh-huh.
they were trash human beings. He left a whole city because of something he did with a girl. He was sleeping in a hotel for months on end. Like he got trash
Uh-huh.
tendencies.
Yeah,
Um,
because remember for a while we was like, do they have? Are they a throuple with somebody? Or like, is Issa's brother somehow sleeping? Like, there was all kinds of theories
right,
in the beginning about like what is really happening in their relationship. So we already know that they did not have an innocent relationship.
right. And I think it was also a moment for Lawrence to be like, okay, let me chill. On thinking that I gotta find my younger Felicia Rashad, I gotta find my younger Claire,
Hmm.
and reevaluate my dating with intention. But yeah, it was a reminder that people just automatically assume that marriage means that everybody's good, and these are people who have been doing right their whole lives, and that ain't the case. Um,
And it showcased that even though you're married doesn't mean that you're ready to have a baby or that you like plan this elaborate thing. He was like, we was about to travel, we was about to buy a house, and now even though they're not, 16 and pregnant, they're older, they have jobs, they're established, doesn't mean that you have unlimited money supply. And like
mhm.
kids do disrupt that, and these are real life grown up problems, right? These are not like 20 something year old, like they're Issa's concerned about still building her career. Molly's trying to figure out, what's going on with her man. Like they're like, okay, well, we did those things, but this is like another, like it's not all hunky dory after you get the man and the job.
Right,
Like
right,
other stuff still comes up.
exactly. So we ended this episode with uh Issa not knowing exactly why Condola is not speaking to her because Lawrence didn't get the chance to tell her he was on the way, but he didn't tell her.
Mm.
And Lawrence and Issa seem to be in a good space right now. Like
They do. It was
yeah.
cute.
But it doesn't seem like anything's gonna pop off from it. Like it just
No, no,
seems
it's like
like
a
they're
good
just there.
friendship. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We do know that the event still happens. We don't know who the headliner is. Maybe Beyonce is
No.
gonna roll through next week. But the title for next week's episode is Lowkey Moving On. So
Mm.
what that
That could
means.
mean a lot of things.
It can mean a lot of things. And of course, the preview didn't give a lot to work with other than next week is the block party episode. So
I'm excited.
yeah, and then I'm wondering like, okay, I feel like we're gonna see some people we haven't seen in a while next week because it's just that's what events do. They bring out hella
Yeah.
haunts to
Uh-huh.
to
Like
quote.
Nathan's gonna show up.
Right. I feel like Nathan's gonna pop up.
What about
Um
old girl from we got y'all? Because we haven't seen them in a while. Maybe she gonna show up and like, hey Issa, like, I've been tracking you on Instagram. I came to your party.
Right. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna see a lot of folks that we haven't seen in a while. I
Maybe we will see Daniel. Maybe she did call him and we just did because she needed a shower. And she did call him or something.
right, and we know that Insecure is good for people popping up later on in the season who we had gotten used to not seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a prime opportunity for that. And now we're at the halfway point in the season. Well, I'm sorry, next week will be the halfway point in the season. So think about it. Even though next week is a block party, we still got 5 episodes after that to deal with the aftermath of what it is. So we're definitely seeing a shift in the season as we move towards the end. But yeah, I'm trying to think, is there anything else we didn't cover for this? Oh, Mirror Bitch showed up in this episode.
Oh, she was salty too.
Right.
She said, "I do got an attitude."
Yeah, so that was her first appearance. No. It was her second appearance because the first appearance was when the condom got stuck.
Yeah, that was gross, but it was funny.
Yeah, so she rightfully had an attitude because there's been a lot of mess going on lately, and she hadn't had a chance to let it out. So,
Yeah. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yes. Other than that, yeah, I think this was a good episode. I think it finally put things in perspective as to okay, why what's the moment that defines the separation between
The
Issa and
breakup.
Molly, right?
So
But
wait, before we move on to the next week, who's are you team Issa or are you team Molly?
I feel like in this situation they both have points on the table.
Your team Misa.
Right. uh,
Okay.
at this point, I'm team resolution, whatever it is. Like if we decide, okay, we know we're gonna scale back who we are, or uh, understand that we can be better, whatever it may be. But I feel like we're also not done. I feel like there's another kind of moment that's gonna happen at the block party
That's
where
gonna like blow it all up.
right.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be a like, why can't you be happy for me kind of moment for both of them,
For both,
right?
yeah. Hmm. But would
Because
you have helped her as Molly? Would you have helped her?
yeah,
I would
because
have.
I would assume that whatever we were going through, just based off of what we know, wasn't anything that was going to like definitely kill our relationship as friends. So yeah, I would help. I would do it with attitude, but I would definitely help out in that situation.
Okay.
Cause I know that the greater goal is for us to still be cool. Like, you know,
Hmm.
and I'm not the one to do like petty stuff.
But
Um,
you're Molly, and so you would be petty. So,
no, because I try to operate under the understanding that you treat your friendships like your credit, right? You use less than what you have so that you can always ask for you always have the opportunity to ask to utilize your credit line for folks, so you take in as many opportunities to do favors for folks so that your credit line goes up, your opportunity for using that line goes up, but you don't
mm,
use it unless you absolutely need to, unless you really need something to pay off for you. So
yeah.
that's how I kind of approach stuff. Like, look, we can be mad, but all right, look, I'm not it ain't gonna get done right now, but I'm gonna do it for you. Like, all right, yeah, okay, send it over, whatever, da 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 da. But yeah, I wouldn't shut you down unless it was something so like ridiculous. But that would be uh, that shutdown would happen regardless of where we were in the relationship as friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't see myself having that same reaction that Molly did.
Well, I'm excited for Issa. I think she's got this. I'll be like, I know she's gonna be extra proud of herself that she pulled it out without Molly, without Condola, without anybody. I'm pulling for her, and I can't wait to see what happens because it looked like it was on blast. I'm excited for her.
Hmm. Yeah, me too. All right. So if we missed something, you can definitely let us know. You can hit up the podcast on Instagram or Twitter at UnGentrifiedPod. This episode and all of our other recaps of previous episodes of Insecure, including season 3, can be found on the website for the podcast, which is ungentrifiedpodcast.com. If you like what you heard, which I hope you did, tell somebody else to hear it too. Suggest it to a friend. Have a conversation about it afterwards. Y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all at home. So,
You should be at home.
right.
Unless you're in Atlanta, then you're just out living your best life.
And you should listen to Keisha. Keisha is upset with y'all. Stay home. Um, and she look, I'm abiding by those rules. I'm up in the house. So use that extra time to check us out and tell somebody else to too. But until next week, until Low Key Moving On episode 5, we will talk to you soon. Peace.
Bye.